I will now show you how to make plastic buttons in Photoshop. Let's get started. Come right up here to File and select New from the menu. And for the width and height of this image, let's put in 400 and height 200 and make sure that is set to pixels, and then resolution 72. Background contents, you can just leave that for white for now and go ahead and click OK. And we're just going to go ahead and make my image out here. I make it a little bigger here because we're going to be zooming into this image quite often through the tutorial. So I'm going to get it set up here. Here we go. Make sure that Rulers is on. Come up here to View and go down here to Rulers. Make sure that is checked. And also make sure Snap is checked. And the snap will be helpful for us during this tutorial as well. The first step, we need to fill in the background with a color. And it's going to be a dark gray. So any dark color will work as long as it's not black. So just come over to the toolbar and click on the foreground color, bring up the color picker, and make sure only web safe colors is unchecked because we won't be using web safe colors during this tutorial. But you can select the hex value input area in here, and I want you to enter in 666666, and then after that go ahead and click OK. And then you can select the paint bucket tool on the toolbar and click on the image to fill it in. There you go. Now let's make a new layer on the toolbar, or not on the toolbar, but on the layers palette. Make a new layer, come right over to the toolbar on the very top one there, rectangle marquee tool. And then now we will draw a selection. This selection will actually be the size of the button. So depending on how large or small you want the button, now's the time to design that part. So I'm just going to come in here and click and drag out the size of my button. Let's see. That looks pretty good right there. I'm going to go ahead and leave it right there. I'm going to center that selection right in the middle of the image. Now let's select the gradient tool on the toolbar. If you don't see the gradient tool, the paint bucket tool may be selected. So click on the paint bucket tool and you'll see the gradient tool there. Voila. And then come right up here to the gradient preset picker and make sure the first box here is selected, because that'll make sure that we will fill the selection in with the foreground color and the background color. So we need to change the foreground and background color on the toolbar right now. So first click on the foreground color and then select the hex value input area on the bottom there. And I want you to enter in 0096DC and then click OK. Excellent. Now come over here to the toolbar and click on the background, the color for the background, which is just right here. And then you'll get the color picker again. And then select the hex value input area. And now I want you to put in 00023A. All right, when you have that, click OK. And you're pretty much all done. And the button is completed. No, yeah, hardly. We haven't even done anything yet. All right, let's get back to the tutorial here. Now we need to fill this selection in from the bottom to the top using the gradient tool. So just come down here to the bottom and hold down the Shift key and drag it up to the top of the selection to fill it in. Just like that. Perfect. Next we'll need to contract the selection. Come up here to Select, Modify, Contract. All right, and for the contraction we're going to enter in about 4. And when you have 4, click OK. Now, if you're making bigger buttons, then you're going to need to subtract or contract the selection more. You're going to probably have to enter in more than 10 pixels, if it's a really big button. So don't forget that. All right. Now we're going to drag some guides into the image. Come right up here to the ruler and click on the ruler and drag down, and you will see a guide appear. Drag that guide until it snaps just to the top of the selection there. You see that? How it just snapped right in there? That's exactly what we want. Come over to the left side, the ruler here on the left side, click on the ruler and drag out another guide, and we'll place this on the left side of the button there, and drag one more and position that over on the right side of the selection, and it should snap right to it, which is really neat. And I'm going to drag one more. I'm going to click on the top ruler and drag down another guide and position that on the bottom of the selection. Release the mouse. There we go. So make sure you have all four sides. Now we can come up here to select and deselect the selection. Okay. Next we'll need to zoom in to the image. You can select the zoom tool on the toolbar here and click on the image, and I'm going about 300% here, maybe actually 400. Let's just say 400%. So you can tell how far in you're zoomed by looking up on the top of the image here. You can see it says right here, 400%. Or you can look on the navigator palette and it should say right there, 400%. Okay. Now let's make a new layer on the layers palette. And let's select the polygon lasso tool on the toolbar. Okay, if you see the lasso tool that looks like that, like a cowboy lasso tool, yeehaw! Well, click on that lasso tool and you'll see the polygon lasso tool right there, right underneath it. Okay. Now we're going to make a selection. It's going to be a unique shape selection. So come right down here to the image, just to the bottom left corner of the button, or for what's a button so far anyway, and just hold down the shift key, click the mouse once, and then I want you to drag that just to where the two guides meet. You see right there? Click again, and then drag across to the other side while still holding the shift key down. You come to the other side, right where the two guides meet, right there. Click again and then drag down to the right corner. Click again and then drag back over to where you started. There you go. And we've connected the selection, or we've connected the lasso, and now we have this selection for our button. Next, we will be filling in this selection with a light blue gradient. But we have two options here for this part. If you want like a clear looking button, then you're going to want to fill it in with the light blue gradient. Now, if you want a solid looking button, then you're going to need to fill it in with dark blue. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to do both on this tutorial, the clear button and the solid plastic looking button. Okay, but first I'm going to design the clear plastic button, and then I'm going to go back and show you how to make it look like a solid button, sort of. Okay, first select the gradient tool on the toolbar, and then come up here to the the gradient preset picker and select, it's the second box there. It says foreground to transparent. And I want you to double click on that one to select it. And then for the foreground color, enter this, click on the foreground color to bring up the color picker, and then enter down here, I want you to enter, I think it's 00D9FD, and it gives that highlighted exact color that we want. When you have that, go ahead and click OK. Alright, now just come right down to the bottom of the selection here, position that right on the bottom with the cursor, hold down the shift key, and then drag up, just past the selection. And you want that to really stand out. If you mess up, do it again. I'm going to hold down Control-Alt-Z, or you can come up here to go to Edit, Undo, and I'm going to do that one more time. I want to make sure that's nice and bright. If it's not bright enough, if it's not bright enough, then you can go past the selection to make it brighter. There you go. That looks pretty good right there. I'm going to go ahead and deselect that. There we go. Perfect. Now select the polygon lasso tool again over on the toolbar. And then come right over to the right side of the button here. And we're going to select this side of the button. It's a little tricky, but click right, you see where the two guides here meet on the bottom right. Click right in the middle there. And then I want you to drag down to the corner. And you can hold the shift key down too. You get a nice, nice diagonal line there. which it helps you out a little bit. And then click and then drag up to the top right corner and then over to the guide right next to it and then back down. So we've selected just that side of the button there. Okay. Okay, on the next step, make sure the polygon lasso tool is selected. And then make sure anti-aliased is unchecked on the options bar at the top of the screen. And then come right down here to the bottom right corner, just where the two guides meet. You can see where my cursor is here. It's right there. Click the mouse, and then you can hold down the shift key. That'll help you out. But I want you to drag down a diagonal line right to the bottom right corner there, and then drag up to the top right corner, and then over to the guide, and then back down to where you started. And it'll select that side of the button there. Okay? Now we'll need to fill the selection in with a dark blue. So click on the foreground color on the toolbar. That'll bring up the color picker. And right down here where the hex value input is, enter in 131C46. And that'll give us the dark blue color we want. Okay, when you have that, there's two ways you can fill it in. One way is to come over here and select the paint bucket tool, click on the selection, or you can come up here to edit and then select fill. And make sure you have foreground selected from the fill menu. But that's how it should look right here. All right, let's make a new layer here. Actually, before I do that, you know what? You can go ahead and go up here to select and deselect before you move on. And then come over here to the layers palette and make a new layer. And this will be the layer that we'll be designing our highlights on. So come over to the toolbar and select the line tool. Okay. And then make sure anti-aliased is unchecked, and the weight for the line is going to be 1 pixel. Okay, we'll need to set the color though for the line, so click on the foreground color on the toolbar and then select the hex value input area and put in ACC1DD, and that'll give us the color we want. And then just come right over the top, just sort of like right on the inner side of the guide on the top left corner there. We're gonna draw this line right straight across the top. Hold down the shift key and then just draw a line straight across until you meet with the other side. Just like that. The line should be on the bottom side of the top guide. You see how that is there? So if you have that, that's just perfect. And then we're going to draw another line. This time it's going to be a vertical line. It should be on the right side of this vertical guide here. So I'm going to click up here and drag down and get to the bottom there. There we go. Okay, now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to hide the guides. All right. And so come up right up here to view and down here to show and make sure guides is unchecked. And then we're going to add a little, it's another little detail for the highlight on the button. It's really neat, really makes a nice result. Come over to the toolbar and select the pencil tool. And then up on the brushes preset picker, select the 1 pixel brush. And then come right over to the image and just in a little bit. And if you want to see the brush, make sure caps lock is off. And you can see the cursor change to just that 1 pixel brush. You see that? And just come right over just inside of the corner there and just click the mouse once and you'll add a little pixel there. And it really looks sharp zoomed out. Of course, we're 400% zoomed in right now. It doesn't look too great, but when you zoom out of it, it's really going to look cool. And the next step, go over here and select the brush tool in the toolbar, okay? And for the brush tool, we're going to select sort of like a soft brush, maybe like a 35, or actually, no, if you got a 27 pixel size soft brush, go ahead and select that, okay? And what we're going to do is we're just going to, okay, when you have all that, come right over the toolbar and select the eraser tool, okay? And then come up here to the brushes preset picker and select a soft pixel brush, like this, like 27 pixel soft brush here, a rounded one. That'll work just fine. Go ahead and double click on that to select it, and then come right over the image, and I want you to just fade the ends of this highlight here just a little bit. You see that? Just a little bit. If you mess up, you can go ahead and undo, but I want you to fade those in just a little bit and get the bottom there. You see that? Just like that. Okay, looking great. Come over to the layers palette and make a new layer. And then select the radial marquee tool on the toolbar, and then we're going to make the selection on the very top of the button here, just in from the top a little bit. Drag this selection, make the selection, but make sure there's 1 pixel. It's 1 pixel a gap here from the highlight and the selection, just like you see it on the screen right here. That's exactly how we want it. And then I want you to fill this in with 100% black. So we're going to want to fill that in with black. So on the foreground color, there's other ways we can do this, but I'm just going to select all the way black down here, the very bottom left there. Click OK, and then select the paint bucket and just click in the selection there to fill it in. There we go. And then we can go up here to select and deselect that selection. Okay, we're getting close here. Now let's make a new layer on the layers palette. Come right down here, click on the new layer icon. And now we're going to make this stroke around the button. Okay, so I want you to hold down the control key and click on layer number 1, which contains, it's the blue part of the button there, the background. Click on layer number 1 and you see the button select there. And then come up here to edit, down here to stroke. And make sure the stroke color here is black. And the location will be inside. And when you have all that, go ahead and click OK. All right, now we will make the inset background of the button. For now, you can come up here to select and deselect that selection. But come down here to the bottom of the layers palette and click on the background layer. And then I want you to make a new layer above the background, just like that. Then select the rectangle marquee tool on the toolbar and draw a selection around this button, just outside of the button there. So it looks just about like that. Okay. And now we're going to fill this selection in with a gradient. So select the gradient tool on the toolbar and then press D and X on the keyboard. And then come up here to the brushes preset picker and make sure the first preset is selected, the one that goes foreground to background. Okay. Double click on that to select it. And we're going to want to fill this selection in from bottom to top. So come down here to the bottom of the selection, hold down the shift key and drag up. And then let go of the mouse. Okay, now this might take a couple tries to get it just right. Well, there's different ways we can fill the selection in here. I'm going to go ahead and undo that real quick. If I go past the selection a little bit, you can see it gives a little different result. It's more visual. It's more visual up on the top of the button here, as you can see. But if I don't go up here to select, deselect, and so you can see that's looking really nice right there. Anytime we really want to see what it looks like at 100%, just come up here to View and go down to Actual Pixels, and you can see that's what it's going to look like. And that looks pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and keep it like that. But experiment with the gradient. When you're applying the gradient, move that around. You can go a little further with it just to get a different fill in the selection. So experiment with that. Okay, now we need to create a drop shadow on the bottom of the blue layer here, the layer that contains the blue part of the button. Okay, I want you to click on that on the layers palette and then come up here to layer and select the layer style and then drop shadow. I'll go ahead and bring this up here. And for the opacity, we can put in about 75%. And the distance for this size button, I'm going to go about 2. And size, well, you know, we can experiment with it depending how it looks here. Let's see here. To get a kind of a better idea on how it's going to look, just come up here to View. And you can even do this while the layer style thing is open. You can just come up here to View and go to Actual Pixels. And you can see that little shadow coming up on the bottom of the button there. See, that really makes a difference. See, if I turn it off, you can see now it looks pushed in. So if you wanted it to be pushed in, but then like let's say like you hover the mouse over a button and you can make it look pushed in, but as soon as you take the mouse off the button, then it pops up again, so it looks like that. So that's just, you know, it's an effect that you can do, but that is what it looks like. So it makes it look a little more popped out when we have the drop shadow there. I'm going to experiment with the size here a little bit. That looks pretty good right there. I like that. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And we are pretty much done. I mean, that is the button right there. Check it out, man. This is like a toggle button, like some buttons like you would see back in the 70s or you know, game type buttons. And I think they're really cool. And I decided to go ahead and show you how to create one in Photoshop. And they're sometimes seen on electrical panels and things like that. And so they're really, really interesting buttons. Let's go ahead and click on the topmost layer on the layers palette, and then come over to the toolbar and select the horizontal type tool, and then click on the button there, and let's go ahead and type some text. I'm just going to put, I'll make it all caps, click me, and I'll press enter on the keyboard to confirm that, and I'll select the move tool and I'll position that. And to make that text blend in with the button like it's clear, then come over here to the layer blending modes menu and select overlay, and that'll just blend that in there. And you can move it around too after you do that, but check it out. All right, now as promised, I'm going to show you what to do to make it look like more of a solid plastic button. And believe it or not, it's just a really easy, it's just one layer you have to change. So go ahead and zoom into the image, select the zoom tool, and zoom into about 400%. And then come up here to view and make sure the guides are being seen here. And then click on, I think it's layer number 2, which contains the highlight on the bottom there. Okay, and select the polygon lasso tool on the toolbar, and then come right down here to the bottom left corner, hold down the mouse, and we're going to select the same spot that we did earlier in the tutorial when we created the blue highlight down here. Okay, but this time we're going to actually fill that in with dark blue. And I'm going to make that on its own layer here. I'm going to make a new layer, and then I'm going to come over here to the foreground color. We're just going to select any dark blue, should work just fine. I'm going to select blue down here. There we go, that looks good. And I'm going to go up here to edit, fill, and use the foreground color to fill. And there we go. And then I'll go over here and I can go up here to select and then go to deselect. Great, check it out. And then I'll go up here to view, actual pixels, and then up here to view, show, and uncheck guides. And look what you have there. You see it changes the total look of the button. It looks like a solid button now. And you can even make it look more solid if you take the overlay off and then you just lower the opacity just a little bit. That looks like a solid button right there. And to change that, all we have to do, I can just make that solid fill layer that I just created, I can make that invisible, and now it looks more like a clear button. Okay, and so those are just two options you can do, you know, depending on what you wanted. But that is how you create plastic buttons in Photoshop. Have fun.